Well, hello, everybody. Hope you are having a good day. Before I get started, I do want to give a quick shout out, if that's the proper thing to say, for the Injury Summit, which begins next Thursday, the 17th, and it runs for 4 days. So it's free. So please sign up. I've been putting stuff out on Facebook, and if you go to Runners Connect homepage, you'll see some links to it and this and that. So it's free, and even I speak. So anyways, make sure you check that out. I wanted to talk about injuries a little bit, and not anything specific, but I wanted to talk about a concept that I think I mentioned about a week ago. And I swear when I said it, I jumbled it and mumbled it, and I don't think I made a whole lot of sense. So let me try again. And let me kind of preface this whole thing. It seems like nowadays when we get some type of cold or ache or pain or illness, so not even just running related, a lot of times we have to self-diagnose. We have to go to Google and try to figure out kind of what's going on, which is just kind of a sad state of our health insurance and everything else. And that's kind of what, as from a runner standpoint, when you have an injury, you really have to kind of self-diagnose. You really have to take steps back and have a good understanding of like kind of what led up to a certain injury. Overuse is a really common source of injuries, especially when it comes to IT band or patella tendonitis or Achilles tendonitis or anterior shin pain, like the outside upper portion of your shin. Those type of things can be overuse. And the trick with overuse is if you run, you ramp up your mileage for a couple of weeks, you're not going to feel those aches or pains immediately. It takes time. It takes a couple of weeks. So maybe it takes a couple of weeks for that pain to develop, and then you can't just turn that pain off. You can't just rest for a couple of days and have the pain go away. And I think that's a really hard thing for people to understand. There's a lag time, if you will, with especially when it comes to overuse injuries. Um, but if you like came to when I had my store and you came in and asked me like, hey, I have this Achilles pain. What should I do to fix it? Should I try shoes? Should I try orthotics? Should I try these different things? I'm not going to be able to answer that question immediately. What I'm really going to do is I'm going to ask you questions because you kind of know the answer, and I'm going to ask you questions, and hopefully we can see like a pattern develop. I'm going to ask you questions about footwear. I'm going to look at how shoes are worn. I'm going to ask about training. I'm going to ask, if mileage is increasing. I'm going to ask if pace is increasing. If you're doing hills, if you run on a treadmill, if you've been putting an incline, all these different things. And if you can answer those questions, then together we can come up with a solution. And a lot of times, once you figure out the problem, the root cause, the solution's pretty straightforward. So it really comes down to you as the injured person to kind of help self-diagnose, answer those questions. And if you can't answer those questions, which a lot of people couldn't, then it made the solution almost impossible. And you don't want to chase things around. The other thing that I just want to mention quickly, and I always struggled with this as a shop owner helping people with injuries, is that not all doctors are created equal. And by no means am I trying to fault physicians in any way. But if you go, I'll just give you a good example of what I mean by this is somebody. So I have my shop in Boston. Somebody's training for Boston Marathon. Say races in April. They just start training in February. They ramp their mileage up and they get an Achilles pain. What they do is they go to a doctor, and they may go to a doctor who doesn't have quite a running understanding of running and overuse and this and that. And that doctor, excuse me, provides orthotics. So now all of a sudden that person has changed their gait. They've overcorrected themselves with the use of orthotics. And now they've actually, rather than a simple overuse injury, now they've actually turned it into a biomechanics issue. And what would happen is they would come and they would see me. And after a while, I'd start to get the sense like, you know what, I don't think you need these orthotics. I think it's just overuse. And it would be really hard for me to basically say, I don't think you should have spent $400, and I think your doctor misguided you. And the funny thing that would happen is when I finally would say that to the person, they would say, you know what, I felt the same thing. So even though they kind of felt like the doctor was prescribing something that wasn't quite right, they still went ahead with it. So don't be afraid to second guess anybody, especially when it comes to your own health, injuries, this and that. So going over my allotted 5 minutes, but hopefully This has been of some value. And again, check out the Injury Summit starting next week. It's free. Can't beat that, and you can watch it at home. You don't have to travel anywhere. So, on that note, everybody, as always, it's a pleasure um, rambling on. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thanks.